Dozier with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Who just joined us, please?
David Martin.
Yes, David. Hello. I spoke with you this morning. Okay, so what I'm going to do, first, okay, just to make sure, I'm going to go through one more time. I introduce the people that are here in the room with me before we get started. In the room with me, I have, first of all, my name is Tamsin Dozier. I am the Environmental Project Manager for the review of COLA application for Unit 3. I have Andy Kugler. He is the NRC staff member who reviews the energy alternatives for Dominion's application. We also have in the room Dan Mazzotti. He has several sections, one of which is need for power that he oversees for our COLA review. And so those are the three people in the room with me. Then I will, we have 6 people here with on the phone with Dominion. I'm not going to go through those names, Tony, if it's okay. I might verify my spelling with you later to make sure I'm okay on that. And then in terms of members of the public, I have Kay Patrick, Erica Gray, Patricia Sansbury, and David Martin. Is there anyone on the phone that I have not identified yet? Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that, your patience while we go through that. This is a Category 1 meeting with Dominion concerning the environmental review for their Unit 3 COLA application, specifically to discuss information that was presented in their recent revisions to the environmental report. Now, the public is going to be invited to participate in the meeting and will have opportunities to communicate with the NRC after the business portion. As you can see from the agenda, we are estimating that that it'll take the maximum we think that it'll take would be 45 minutes. Probably not going to take that long for NRC to present their questions and things that they'd like to talk about to Dominion. Then Dominion will respond. There will be some conversation, and then when we have completed that, then I will open it up to members of the public. We're saying about 10:45. It could be before then, and then we would adjourn. Are there any questions about our process today? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the meeting over now to Andy Kugler, who is going to discuss the questions that he has for Dominion, some of the background, and some of the things that we wanted to talk about today. Okay, Andy.
Thank you, Tammy. All right. In reviewing the revisions to the application, one of the areas that had changed were estimates of new capacity that was being developed within PJM. So I'm looking in section 9.2.1.1, and this is on page 9-4 of the environmental report that was submitted, revision 6 of the environmental report.
Thank you for identifying that, Andy.
Okay. On page 4, the second full paragraph is a brief paragraph that says, based on analysis of PJM generation interconnection queue as of May 2013, there are currently 5,418 megawatts summer rated capacity under study for the surrounding regions outside the Dominion zone, including in all or parts of Virginia, North Carolina, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, New Jersey, D.C., and Indiana. Gas comprises the largest portion with 5,080 megawatts. And there are 2 footnotes. The first footnote is most pertinent to the question today. It says, this includes projects listed as active, under construction, or partially in service, with planned in-service dates after January 1st, 2013. All right. So I just want to make sure I understand what you looked at, the approach that you took in developing the number that you have here, this 5,418 megawatts. When I looked at the queue, I went back to it yesterday, so obviously it has changed since May.
Yeah, it probably has. It changes almost
every day, depending on the withdrawals of the queue and stuff like that.
And you're saying the queue for PJM, Andy?
Correct, the PJM queue.
Thank you.
And what I did, now this is the first part I want to make sure I understand. So when you go into the PJM queue, they have a generation queue active. So that's the web page, is generation queue active.
Exactly.
And then under that, you can select, in terms of status, you can select under construction.
Yes.
You can select partially in service.
Yes.
Those are the two status you look for. And you also considered what the in-service dates are, because you see a number of them have in-service dates that are precede 2013. And so you did not include anything that preceded 2013. Is that correct?
Due as of May 13th. In fact, let me look at this. We did attach exactly the units which we have looked at. It's in part of the attachment. And I'm looking at right now.
What attachment are you referring to?
It's page 8-52, Andy.
Oh, chapter 8.
Yeah, we have every unit which we added, and it's listed as a queue number. It's table 8.3-4.
850, yeah, 852. Okay.
So these were the units we included in that.
And Tammy, if you need me to identify folks as we speak or respond, let me know.
Yeah, that would be, so the person that's speaking right now, is that,
Ash.
okay.
And the folks on the line with Joyce and myself also work within the part of Dominion that deals with the integrated resource planning for the company.
Got it.
And you don't know every single nuclear unit in your head.
I'm sorry, whoever was speaking there, the call was between Dominion and the NRC right now?
Yeah, right now only Dominion and NRC folks are allowed to speak.
Okay, so I understand that part of it. Now, one question I have, when I look at the queue, it speaks in terms of what substation a project will connect to, and
mute on.
It doesn't necessarily tell you the name of the facility or even the company that owns it. I guess if I dig deeper, I might be able to find some of that. But my question is, just to be clear, you say for the surrounding regions outside the Dominion zone. So if there were any of the projects listed in the queue that are within the Dominion zone, those would not be included in the list in this table in Chapter 8. Is that correct?
No, within the Dominion zone are included.
Okay, so it includes everything in PJM in those states.
In Dominion zone, yeah.
Well, he said in those states. So the Dominion zone, there's a Dominion zone that is designated within the Dominion service territory.
But this is mainly for the DOM zone.
Okay.
Okay, all right. I think we're talking two different things, so let's stop for a second and step back. Okay, I'm just realizing the table in Chapter 8 says generator interconnection requests in the Dominion zone.
In DOM zone, yes.
So that is only, and that might explain some of why I'm seeing something rather different. Those are only projects that are proposed within the Dominion zone of PJM.
Of PJM, correct, Andy.
Right. Okay, so the reason I'm asking, what the paragraph says in Chapter 9, let's focus in on that for a second. I'm not sure if everybody at Dominion has this in front of them, but what the chapter or the paragraph I'm looking at in Chapter 9 says that there are 5,418 megawatts under study for the surrounding regions outside the Dominion zone including all or parts of Virginia, North Carolina, West Virginia, so on, various list of states. So what I'm reading here is that this number we're looking at is for projects outside the Dominion Zone, whereas the table in Chapter 8 lists projects within the Dominion Zone.
That is correct. The table 8.3-4 is Dominion Zone.
Okay, all right. That now makes a lot more sense.
That number is 5896.
Right.
Yeah.
And the outside number is 5418, so that's a total of about roughly 11,000.
Yes.
Which is okay, and that comes up very similar to a number that I found when I went through the queue and looked at everything. For me, it's a little harder to tell which things are within the Dominion Zone and which things are not.
Sure.
Does the figure in Chapter 8, is that of any assistance, Ash?
Actually, I think the table is going to be more helpful because that table, which I hadn't recognized, that I wasn't aware of that table because I didn't review Chapter 8.
I understand, Andy. Thank you. Yeah.
It's a PJM substation, so that information is in the queue, so I can, using that table, I can tell which of the items I was looking at are within the Dominion Zone and which are not. So I should be able to sort it out from there.
Sure.
I think then that answers my question. That was what I was trying to understand. I was trying to make sure I clearly understood what you looked at, how you came up with your list, and how this number was developed. And based on what you told me, the numbers I've got look to be pretty similar. So I feel better about that now. I was coming up with a very different number, but I was looking at it in a different way.
Sure. Well, no, and that's the reason, because there are a number of different resources.
Okay. Do we want to pause and find out? At least a couple of people have joined.
Right. Okay. I'm hearing some maybe people coming in or maybe people coming out. Right now, I want to just do a head count and make sure I'm aware of who is in the meeting. For the members of the public, we have Kay Patrick, Erica Gray, Patricia Sansbury, and David Martin. Has anyone else from the members of the public joined us, please?
Bill Harb.
This is Patricia Stansbury, and my call got dropped, so I called back in. That's one that you heard.
Got it.
There was
Okay.
another.
And I'm sorry, did another person join us?
I'm Bill Harwood.
Okay, and you are a member of the public?
Isn't everybody a member of the public?
I'm sorry, as opposed to someone from Dominion. Thank you. Okay. Right now, we're continuing some conversations between NRC and Dominion, and just probably not very long. We'll be open it up for members of the public to comment.
Or to speak to the NRC.
I'm sorry. Ask questions of the NRC.
So I believe my portion of it, I'm done. I have what I need now to continue my review.
Okay, Tony, I'm going to put you guys on mute for just a minute. I'm going to have a chat with Andy and Dan real quick, and then we'll get back with you, okay?
That is fine. Thank you.
All right, stand by.
What's the purpose of this call, Erica?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
That's a good question because it sounds like it's supposed to be for the COLA, which is a combined license for the third unit.
Okay, I'm sorry, we're back. So Tony, I believe that concludes the questions we had for you guys today. Was there anything else that you felt like would shed some light, or is that basically it for you guys as well?
I think Joyce and I were able to bring together the folks within the company that we regard as our SMEs for these topics. Mm-hmm. And if there are no more questions from you all, we have nothing else that we need to add to what we have submitted to you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so at this point, then I'm going to turn to members of the public, and which you have an opportunity now to make any comments to the NRC or ask some questions of us concerning the scope of the call today.
Right. This is Patricia Stansbury. My call was stopped right when the gentleman from Dominion was answering the question.
I'm sorry, you got dropped. Your question was something about...
I got...
I'm sorry, Ms. Stansbury, you're dropping in and out. We cannot understand what you're saying.
Okay. What did Dominion reply to the question?
Our question was, we were looking for the basis for some numbers that were in the environmental report. Where did they get some of the figures that they were giving us for future projections of electricity generation? And what it looked like was that some of the information was in Chapter 8 that our Chapter 9 technical reviewer needed to have to understand. Do you want to answer that?
Right. Basically, some of the information I was looking for was actually in a different chapter, and they were able to clarify for me how they developed these numbers.
Okay, so it was page numbers, but nothing into the answer other than the page numbers, because that's all the drop right.
Okay, yeah, I don't think we had too much. Well, I'm not sure when you dropped out. That's true. So, yeah, basically, we were talking about an issue on page 9-4 of the environmental report, and in particular, the second full paragraph of that page. There's a number of the capacity that's in the queue in a list that is maintained by an organization called PJM. They oversee interconnection of electrical sources, power plants of various types, within a large region. Actually, it includes a good chunk of the eastern part of the United States. Yeah. And I was trying to make sure I understood how Dominion had developed the number that they had in this paragraph, or the two numbers they have in this paragraph, for new generating capacity that is under construction within PJM, but outside of the Dominion portion of PJM. Dominion is one part of PJM. So I was trying to make sure I understood how they developed these numbers, and they were able to explain it. And part of the explanation was that in Chapter 8, on page 8-52, Able, that shows the portion of new plants being developed that are within Dominion zone, and then the numbers listed on page 9-4 are for new plants being developed outside the Dominion zone, but in these various states within PJM. Does that help?
Yes, it does. I just wanted to make sure I hadn't missed anything.
Okay.
Thank you.
So are there any other questions at this time to the NRC?
Well, the obvious one is, given the fact that we know with our 100 acting plants and the danger that any one of them having a major catastrophe could essentially end life in the United States, why in the hell are we thinking about building more when we know that we can easily generate the power we need with water, wind, or solar energy? And it seemed like an obvious question.
Mr. Did you say your name was Henward? I'm sorry.
I've been called everything from Hat Rack to Hasty, but those are two new ones.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you say your name again? I wrote down Henward. That might not be correct.
Harwood.
Haywood, okay.
5 floors and furniture with no D in the middle.
Got it. Okay. What it is when we have a telecom like this, we need to keep it within the scope of the call, the comments or the questions. And the scope of the call today was to discuss the numbers or the future generation capacity for the area. The questions that we had. Now, do you have any questions about that?
Well, for instance, why aren't we thinking about fusion power? I've had extensive talks with the REC, Rappahannock Electric Co-op, in case you don't know. I had planned to build a large retirement community on my property, and it's very easy to produce with fusion energy, which burns anything. Wood chips would be the obvious fuel in Virginia, since we're primarily timber state, and generate any amount of power. And there's no harmful waste at all, only ashes, and they're easily recyclable. Why are we not thinking about doing things like that?
Well, Mr. Haywood...
Anything but nuclear power.
Mr. Haywood, this is Andy Kugler with the NRC. A couple of things. First of all...
Haywood.
I'm sorry, Haywood, right? Yeah.
I never met an English in my life who intended to insult me that didn't call me something that wasn't my name.
We're trying to understand it. It's a little, the phone connection may not be very good. It may be a little garbled, but at any rate,
right.
at any rate, first of all, two things. The only type of license we are allowed to consider is for a fission-powered nuclear power plant. But the other thing is, we will consider, when we look at alternatives, we do consider anything that is proposed in the area. So, for instance, we are looking at the interconnection list for the PJM region, and so for any technologies that are actually proposed to PJM and being seriously considered in PJM for building, we do consider those. And we then look at those alternatives versus the proposed action. So we do that. We do exactly what you suggest we need to do. And
what is PJM?
PJM is the regional transmission company. They manage connecting new power plants into the grid and manage the stability of the grid. Try and make sure that that there's enough electricity generation in the region to support the grid and to be able to respond, say, if a power plant trips or something like that. There is a map in the environmental report. If you have access to the environmental report, it's on page 8-27. And that shows you the area that is covered by this particular organization. There are other organizations like it throughout the country.
Of Rev 7.
Yeah, I'm sorry, this is in revision 7, page 8-27.
So what are you considering besides nuclear energy?
Well, we consider all of the types of energy generation that are currently in use or are being developed. We rely a lot on the Department of Energy's Energy Information Administration for information on future projections of what is likely to be in service in the region. So we look both at what is already proposed and also at the projections by Department of Energy.
Okay. Are there any other questions from members of the public?
Yes, this is Erica Gray.
Hi, Erica.
Yeah, I guess, with all the use of acronyms and whatnot, it does make it difficult for the public, including myself. I'm
not sure people...
I'm really curious here because, this meeting basically says that it's an environmental report related to projections for gas generation in the region. So I'm not really sure. I didn't hear anything about that per se. But when you scroll down, it says that it's also for the North Anna Unit 3. So I guess I'm a little confused because this meeting really didn't give the public much information about any environmental report.
Well, first of all, the thing about the gas generation, that is my fault, Erica, and I do apologize. The energy alternative sections that Andy is looking at, some of what he does look at is future projections for gas generation, but over his main question had to do with generation of all types, not just the gas generation. So that was a miscommunication on my part. But the purpose of the meeting was for us to ask questions about the information in the environmental report, and so that basically is what we did. We asked questions about Dominion's. The information in the environmental report, and they answered those questions. So maybe I do need to, in the future, do a little bit better job in the meeting announcement about being specific about is that what your comment is, that I need to make the meeting announcement a little more specific?
Well, sort of, but I mean, what does this have to do with the COLA for North Anna Unit 3?
This is Andy Kugler. I think I can explain that. All right. Dominion has submitted an application to the NRC for a third nuclear unit at North Anna. As part of our environmental review under the National Environmental Policy Act, we also consider alternatives, and one of the types of alternatives we consider is alternative energy. So we look at the environmental impacts of other ways of generating the electricity that's needed in the region. In doing that, again, we look at what other agencies or other organizations involved in managing the electrical generation in the region have for information on future generating units. So we look, and unfortunately with PJM, I don't know that there's an actual spelling of words. I think they're just called PJM. So I apologize for that one.
New Jersey Herald.
Yeah,
Have you taken a look at anything written by the Club of Rome in the last 45 years? We're the leading climate scientists on Earth.
Okay, but we're not really talking climate here. We're talking about...
Oh, we're not?
No, we're not talking about climate. We're talking about generation.
Not interested in climate, the air and water and soil we live in.
Yes, but that's not the topic of today's call. Let me...
Oh, I see. We focus the topic so narrow that it's absolutely meaningless, and then you avoid the topic entirely.
Answer. This is a call between Dominion and the NRC to try and get an answer for the NRC to a question that we have. So that is the purpose, and it is pretty narrow. There is work going on in the environmental impact statement that will address all the other issues, but that is not the purpose of this call. I would like to be able to finish responding to the question that I'm trying to remember Erica had asked, and I didn't get to finish that. So as part of our review, we do look at alternative energy sources, and in this case, we're looking at non-nuclear alternatives that might be built. It happens that in the region, the overwhelming majority of new generation that is being built is natural gas, and I think that's why when Tammy wrote the meeting notice that she focused on the gas, because that's the bulk of what is proposed or being built in the region in terms of capacity. But we look at everything. We look at all the alternatives. So while we are reviewing a license for a nuclear plant, we do consider other types of energy in the alternatives portion of our evaluation. Does that help in terms of answering your question?
And exactly where can we find information on all this consideration of other sources of energy?
Well, first of all, I'd like to find out if I answered Erica's question.
Erica, did I answer your question?
Some, but I'm just wondering, why is it just gas is considered the alternative?
It is just one of the alternatives that are considered.
Where do you consider the others?
Yes, we do. If you look at the environmental impact statement that was, or the final environmental impact statement, I'm sorry, that was published for the combined license in 2010, in Chapter 9, we go through a wide variety of,
Okay, I'm either going to need you to mail me a copy of this or tell me a link where I can access it.
Okay, Mr. Hayward, the public website at the NRC for the Unit 3 review for North Anna does have our environmental impact statement for the COLA that was published in 2010. It's up on the website, and you can access that, and you can also access Dominion's environmental report. And if you have any trouble,
Very interested. Love to look
right?
at it.
Let me give you my